guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is all about building yourself an amazing team of practitioners to help you to hit your goals. How amazing would that be, right? So many people that I talk to are really at their wits' end, trying to quarterback their own care, trying to cobble together the right combination of practitioners with the right skill sets that can help them to solve their problems and help them to optimize their health. Well, my guest today is all about helping you to do exactly that. His name is Andrew Wax, and he is the Director of Clinical Care with Liv Health. He's an integrative health specialist himself, and he carries degrees in integrative physiology, biochemistry, psychology, and neuroscience. And if that wasn't enough, he's also certified in peptide therapies and has completed advanced fellowship coursework through the International Peptide Society and the Academy and the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, which I think it would have been easier for me to say A4M. In any event, Andrew Wax and I talk about all the different issues that he's seen, or many of the different issues he's seen. We talk about one very interesting job he had being medical scribe for a doctor whose name you will most definitely recognize if you've been a listener of this podcast for any period of time. And we go through some really interesting case studies that I think you will all find really interesting. So Liv Health is a really cool organization. They've put together a product that basically allows you to deal with a team of professionals who have specialties in the areas where you need them. And that team can include a peptide specialist, it can include a nutritionist, it can include a health coach, and it can also include a functional medicine doctor, depending on the plan that you pick. So there's two different levels of plans. I'm not going to tell you what they are right now. You'll find out about them in the podcast. If you can't wait for the podcast, then you want to go to livhealth.com. And if you decide, book a call with them just to find out what they do and if it's a right fit for you. But if you decide to sign up with them, you can use discount code NIDDAM, NIDDAM, like mother at the end and like November at the beginning. It's my last name, NIDDAM, and you will get 1 free month of whatever program it is that you sign up for. So enjoy the episode, enjoy meeting Andrew, great guest, and really knowledgeable guy. And I hope that this can help a few of you guys find what it is that you're seeking out there in the health space. I think these guys are really onto something. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. As you know, if you get value from this podcast, or if you know someone else who might benefit from this information, then please do share it out with your friends, your networks, whoever else. And if you really love the episode, then definitely leave us a review, because that is how we climb up those rankings and get to reach more people. So thanks again and enjoy the episode. Hey folks, just a little bit of housekeeping before we launch into the episode. Please remember that all of the information provided in these podcasts is for information purposes only. We are never offering treatments, cures, whatever for any kind of disease or medical condition. Anything you hear about here is going to be intriguing. There's some research around it, but make sure that you check with your medical provider before you go off and do any of this stuff for yourself. All right. So, enjoy the episode. And also, if you're looking to connect with me for any reason, with your comments, questions, whatever it may be, you can reach me through my website, which is natniddam.com, or you can find me on Facebook in the Optimizing Superhuman Performance group, or on MeWe in the Biohacking Superhuman Performance group. And of course, you can also follow me on Instagram, which is at Natalie Niddam. Natalie is with an H between the T and the A, the second A. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, Andrew. It is such a pleasure to finally get this going on.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited about this episode. I mean, people are probably so sick of me saying that. I'm always excited about all my episodes, but sometimes you get one and you're like, okay, this is going to be good. Because I think what I'm so excited about it here is what we're going to talk about today is really opening a door to people in terms of upgrading their health that has not necessarily been available to a lot of people. And I think that's exciting. I think anything we can do to make health optimization accessible to more people.
Right.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. I'm psyched.
All right, let's rock and roll. So let's talk about Andrew first. We always start with the guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your likes, your dislikes and such, and what brought you to do what you do today.
Yeah. So I'm the director of clinical care for Liv Health. What that means is I oversee all of our clinical operations. I train our staff. I vet our doctors and figure out who we want to work with specifically there. But I have a background in biochemistry, human physiology, psychology, and neuroscience. I thought for a long time I wanted to go to medical school, and I found myself in a precision medicine path as an alternative route. And it was a great opportunity for me, and it's been a great experience. I'm certified in peptide therapies through the International Peptide Society. I've completed advanced fellowship coursework and training in functional medicine and bioidentical hormone replacement through the American Academy for Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. And I'm just a nerd. I'm as nerdy as you can get. I'm really passionate about epigenetics and human performance, anti-aging, general functional medicine, and I like trying everything on myself. So as much as I don't like the term biohacking, I guess I would have to consider myself a biohacker. Yeah, that's me. And what I specifically do is I work with a small subset of patients in Liv Health, but what we do is we operate as health concierges, right? So we're your personal nerd, personal biochemistry nerd that you can message anytime you want. But that's me. That's what I do.
That's amazing. And, I think we're all going to have to come to peace with the term biohacking, because I have a love-hate relationship with the term as well. But ultimately, I think maybe what we need to do is reframe it. And the biohacker of today is the person who wants to have a much more active role in their wellness and their performance. And so they're willing to explore many different avenues than your conventional person on the street who is still interested in being healthy, but is not necessarily as interested in challenging conventional norms to get there. So I think we have to come to peace with biohacking and just,
I guess,
and wrap our arms around it. I have to, because it's in the name of my podcast, even though I think I need to shorten the name of my podcast because there's too many letters in it. But that'll be maybe I'll just do an episode on the name of the podcast and take votes on what it should be next. Anyway, let's get back to you and to your and to Liv Health. But I think before we talk about Liv Health and what it does, let's talk a little bit about why are you doing this? Like what drove you to do what you do now?
So I've worked with Dr. Elizabeth Yurth for a very long time. She's been on the podcast several times here with you. Mm-hmm. She taught me pretty much everything I know. She's brilliant. But the truth is that I started out as her medical scribe in her orthopedic practice. And over time, she was like, "Hey, you get biochemistry, don't you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I do." And she introduced me to A4M as sort of an anti-aging route, and also we found peptides there 6-7 years ago. And so from there, she and I worked to establish her peptide program at Boulder Longevity Institute, which, if anybody wants to check it out, it's a remarkable program. All that said, I thought after working there for a while and establishing her peptide program, I was like, you know what, I really want to go back to school. And turns out it was not the route that was best for me. The founders of Liv Health got in touch with me when they found out I was leaving Boulder Longevity and said, "Hey, why don't you just come give this a shot?" And so ultimately what we are striving for is to improve access and affordability in the world of precision medicine, in the world of functional medicine and integrative health, cellular medicine. So we've developed a model in which you can effectively get access to a team of people that can be your point people, be your personal performance team, really is what it is. But yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah. So I love that you talk about it as
I do it because I love the science, right? Yeah. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm helping people," and I like helping people, but selfishly, it's because I really like the science behind it. I'm a total nerd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's we've come a long way, right? From being a nerd, being a negative, or a geek being a negative, all of a sudden it's this giant badge of honor. Right. Like we want to be nerds and geeks because we wanted to be the people who just dig indiscriminately into all this stuff so that we can can solve problems. But so the precision medicine model, and I think, one of the things that's really intriguing to me about your business and the business model is it's moving in the direction of starting to democratize access to this type of medicine for more people. I mean, it's not going to be covered by insurance. It's still out of pocket. It's still requiring some investment from people, but it's a far cry from, I'll bet you, even a year or 2 or 3 years ago, before this was available to people, where, number one, only a very select few physicians who ended up having to charge very high prices just to manage the flow, never mind anything else, could give them access to this. But also, the other thing that you said that I think is really interesting is the team approach. And, in this world of precision medicine, I think we're back in the world of it takes a village. Like, there's no one person necessarily who holds all the information, who has all the answers in isolation, and can accompany and support a patient through this journey of optimization, because it's so individual and there's so many twists and turns that you have to be available to them.
Yep, absolutely. And there's such a degree of disconnect, right? So, and as we were chatting before we even started here, there was the example that you provided of, these people that are working with functional medicine clinics, and then they are turning to your Facebook group to ask questions about, hey, what's best practice here? And it's like, shouldn't you be able to reach out to your team, like a team of people to actually help you with that? And to your point, and what you had said earlier was, it's tough, right? Because you don't have everyone's medical information right in front of you. Mm-hmm. So why not, solve for that? Now, certainly your podcast serves a purpose, and I don't think that people should stop reaching out there. But certainly there comes a point where it's like, who should you really be asking this question to?
Yeah.
If there's not a high level of trust in your practitioner, if this is where you're turning right now. So I think that's one piece of it, where if you have a team of people where you can centralize your care, mm-hmm. then you'll get a response in a timely manner, and you'll know that you can trust the response that you get, then that's a game changer. Absolutely.
And you have a hub of information. Like, the thing is, like, people can quarterback, and they do. Some people are able to do this, but very few. It's kind of like there's a few people on this earth who can general contract their own renovation at home. But for the most part, you have to hire a general contractor or you lose your mind, right? And so I think this is the same principle, in that you have a quarterback, you have someone, and I think that's the health concierge role in your organization. And that is that person who is, they're your point person, they're the person you're going to talk to the most probably, but they're also the person who's going to be able to reach out to other people to connect you. I try to do that for people, but I don't have that system in place. I don't have that formal structure that you guys have, where you have access to different physicians, you have access to different, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit. Like, when you talk about a team, so we know there's the health concierge, and what is their role and what do they do? And then what lies between them and these doctors that you have on the other side? Because again, like, I think what you're kind of doing, and the way you're making it more affordable, is you're saving the doctor for the things that you actually need the MD for, but you've got a whole other slew of maybe people or services in between. When you don't need the doctor, you need a different type of support in the day-to-day.
So generally in your personal performance team, if you will, is you've got a patient support coordinator who is everything administrative. You've got your health concierge, and you have your doctor. Now, all that said, we have different concierges that do all sorts of different things. So your concierge may be somebody who's a functional holistic nutritionist and, IFM certified health coach, but then another concierge is an Apeiron certified genetics coach. So exactly what you do. There may be somebody who's someone like me, a total just biochemistry nerd and nerd out on hormones and peptides. There may be somebody who specializes in gut health, right? So we can bump you to and from all of these different people on our team that really specialize in these different concepts. And then ultimately, we can also use our network of doctors to consult back and forth as necessary. However, your doctor is the person we assign you to, that's licensed in that state. The fact of the matter is, most of our doctors, at least in the US right now, and we're working on we're working on Live Canada, we're working on international access, and we can provide some care internationally, not our full program, unfortunately. But right now, nationally in the US, your doctor is whoever is licensed in a given state, right? And then we have multiple doctors per state. We typically pair the patient with the doctor that makes the most sense. However, that's your doctor. And if we need to consult with a different physician, certainly we can do that for you. And we advocate on the patient's behalf in a lot of ways, right? So, and the other piece of what we do is really teach people how to advocate for themselves, right? And that's another big point in this, where the patient isn't really most physician relationships are really much more of a dictatorship and says, this is what, right? This is what I'm offering. This is what you're going to do. But truthfully, it comes down to the patient needs to be just as much of a part of the team as the health concierge is, as the doctor is. And in that way, you really are able to deliver a much better experience to the patient.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we can circle back to the term biohacking, where you have people who are much more invested in this process. And it's a population of people who've recognized that if they don't roll up their sleeves and get into it as deeply as anybody else who's involved in their care, they're not going to get the results. And, it's probably always been this way, except it's never been articulated in this way. The patient who gets the best results is the patient who doesn't just take the pill, but maybe says, oh, well, maybe I should stop drinking a bottle of wine every night, or maybe I need to stop eating this, or maybe I should go to bed before 3:00 in the morning.
Right. And one thing I ask most of our patients when they come on, and I've said this many times before, and I always ask them, and I say, are you the type of person that wants to know what time it is, or do you want to know how the watch works? Mm-hmm. And I do get, most people say, I want to know how the watch works. But occasionally I get the person that says, just tell me what time it is. And then I quickly say, I'll tell you what time it is right now, but you need to become the person that wants to know how the watch works. And we'll help get you there, right? Right. We will help you become that person. But if you want to see results here, you really want to see results, you need to understand how this watch works. You need to understand the inner workings of what we're targeting and what's going on. And that's what we'll do. We'll teach you that.
Yeah.
But it's not, that's a conversation I have to have with a lot of people, but that's always important to know starting out, because if somebody comes in and they say, just tell me what to do, I don't really care, what I have to do, just tell me what to do. I just want results. But then inevitably they don't stick to it. They have a low level of compliance. They're still going to bed at 3 a.m. and drinking a bottle of wine every night. And it's like, well, I've got my vitamin D and I've got my B12, but I don't take them because I don't really know what they do.
Yeah.
And it's that's a basic example. You could get much more complex in terms of what the protocols are that we're doing, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. And I think you do. I mean, occasionally you come across the person that says, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they can be the dream client or patient, because you literally tell this person what to do. You tell them to stand on their head and spit nickels for 5 minutes before bed every night, and they will literally do it. They don't care. They don't care why or how it works. They're just like, literally just tell me what to do, what to eat, and I'm in. Those people are few and far between.
There's an exception to every rule.
Yeah, for sure. But to your point, being invested, right? Being invested in knowing and understanding also makes you a better patient, because you're better able to contribute information to the puzzle. And I think this is the piece that sometimes people don't really grasp until they've been working with, whether it's a health coach or someone like you guys, and that is how valuable the feedback is that they give back when they're being asked to do something to solve a problem. Because again, I also talk to a lot of people who they're like, well, I was told to do this and it's not working. I'm like, well, have you told your doctor or your practitioner that it's not working? Well, no, it didn't help. And I'm like, well, you need to understand this is a continuum. This is a process. The beauty and the tragedy of healthcare is that it's an art as much as it is a science. And we may never get to the point where it's pure science, where there's a solution for every problem. It's going to be always a process of peeling back the onion, of understanding what is it that's contributing in your case to a situation.
So, and to that point, I have one woman who she's so sweet, and she does everything we say. And she's the example of what you just said. She's the client who doesn't matter what you tell her to do, she'll do it. She doesn't really care about the inner workings of it, but she'll stick to it. And she's not been doing well, right? She's been super fatigued. Her adrenals are completely drained. And she has just not been doing well generally. And she wasn't doing well for about 6 weeks. And it's rare that we go that long without talking to one of our clients, but she was like, and finally followed up with her. And she was like, I just didn't want to bother you.
Oh God. Yeah.
It's like, no, you're supposed to bother me, right? I can't help you unless you bother me.
That's what you're paying me for.
If you don't tell me what's going on, then we can't help you. We can't make it better, but that's what we do. So there is a degree of it's like, well, I didn't want to bother you. I know you're busy. Yeah, I'm busy, but this is what we do, right?
Yeah.
You're not bothering anyone.
No.
So that's a piece of it. It's like, well, it just didn't work, right? Well, we can go back to the drawing board. It's very rare that we've exhausted all options, right? There's always something else. There's always something else you can do.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the type of person. So we know now their mindset, right? So typically you're perfect. If we had to make an avatar of your perfect patient, it's someone who's invested and interested, who wants to participate in their health and is interested in understanding a little bit more about what works for them and why and the whole nine yard. But let's talk a little bit about what it is that you do exactly. So the things that we see, that I see in my group, for example, are, well, I see everything, but what's your perfect patient in terms of what they're looking for help with, right? Are we looking just for people who are looking to optimize, which I don't think is the right answer? Are we looking, are there certain conditions that you guys specialize in? Do you specialize in hormone therapy? Like what's your jam?
It's our jam. So it's really anyone, right? Anybody. So one thing that's important to differentiate is we're not a primary care doctor, and we actually require all of our patients to have a primary care doctor.
Great.
We can't work with a patient unless they have a primary care and get an annual physical. We have to see that. So we're not a primary care. We're not going to be the people that are treating true sick model conditions, right? There are things that you should target in a sick care model.
Yep.
Right. But and we're not really going to treat a condition, if you will. We'll offer supportive care. But all that said, we're the people who you say, hey, I'm generally healthy. I go to my doctor and they look at my labs and they say, yeah, everything looks fine. But some things are out of range, right? So that then you're wondering, well, everything's not fine. And then take it one step further and then consider the fact that those lab values are really just the average American that you're looking at least in the United States. And then you wonder, well, have you walked around Walmart recently and seen what the average American looks like? And now you're wondering, wait, so everything looks fine. So that's one person, right? Who says, hey, I go to my doctor and they say, look, everything looks fine. Yeah. And we say, well, let's look at that through a different lens.
Yeah.
Let's look and see, okay, what is perfect? Let's get to perfect, right? Because there is a perfect value for labs. So let's see how we can change and modulate that one metric. That's one person. Another person that says, I'm generally, I feel great, but I'm noticing that I'm slowing down. I'm noticing that my brain isn't functioning as right. I'm not sleeping as effectively. I feel inflamed. I don't know what it is. I've tried playing with my diet so many different ways, and I don't know what in the world I'm doing with my diet. Or there's the stereotypical, I have no libido, men or women. I have no libido. How do I get a libido back? And to your point, do you specialize in hormones? We're great at hormones. We're not a hormone clinic, right? We do a lot of hormones. I would not call us a hormone clinic.
But you can optimize people's hormone. Like you can get women through.
Oh yeah.
Through that midlife storm, if you will, of
right. Midlife storm.
Well, so, it is. Talk to enough women. It's a
right. Truthfully. So it's really it's whatever you need, right? So if somebody needs hormones, then we're great at hormones. So let's say, and I think one thing that's unique about hormones in women is that female bioidentical hormone replacement is still not as mainstream as it should be. And a lot of practitioners are scared of it, right? So I do think that female hormone replacement is a wildly underserved population.
Yeah. And
the truth is that somebody needs to be able to say, yes, we can do this. And we can certainly do that. So we work with a lot of women who are, I have one example here that I wrote down when you said, hey, do you have any case studies? And there's one woman who has severe endometriosis. And she's been working with her gynecologist for years trying to get it under control. And what do they offer? Oral birth control pills, right?
Yeah. The Band-Aid, the universal Band-Aid.
Yeah, right. What else do they offer? Well, maybe some antidepressants for when she's really feeling very PMSy.
Mm-hmm.
What? So she came in, she started working with us, and she was put on a protocol including progesterone, both intravaginal as well as topical. She started on a very low dose of testosterone, used some DIM to clear out some excess estrone that she had. She also started on KPV, BPC-157, thymosin beta-4 to improve overall inflammatory side of things, as well as improve angiogenesis. Because the fact of the matter is you need to understand endometriosis is an autoimmune condition, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to target it from that standpoint. And then also things like low-dose naltrexone, make sure her magnesium levels were perfect, N-acetylcysteine so that she's detoxing effectively. And guess what? Complete resolution of the symptoms. She's fine. Wow. Everything's great.
She feels better.
So within a matter of months. So didn't have to have the endometrial scrape, right? She didn't have to have the aggressive surgery. She's not worried about, loss of fertility because she had to undergo that surgery. But it could be as complex as endometriosis, or it could be, I'm going through the change.
Yeah.
I'm a woman, I'm going through the change. The other side of it is, guys, you're over the age of 40, or even younger. I work with guys who are in their mid-20s and they're just like, I just don't feel right. My work life is suffering. I don't feel dialed in. Well, guess what? Everyone's talking about nootropics. Testosterone is the best nootropic that's ever existed. It's remarkable if there is indication for testosterone.
Yeah.
And you're in the shits, then, oh my God, life-changing.
Yeah. I do think though, with testosterone and younger guys, do you ever worry that that people are too quick to go to testosterone? Because sometimes it's required for sure, but don't you find that and I think that's where you guys bring value over a hormone clinic, where a clinic that just only specializes in hormones, it's a little bit what you said earlier, you bring, actually, it might've been offline when we were talking about something else, but you bring your car to a mechanic, he's going to find a problem. But in that one, if you a radiator spare, I don't know, whatever. But with the hormone clinics, I wonder sometimes, I don't know that I find, but I wonder if they're a little too quick with the testosterone replacement for younger guys, and they don't look at the other reason, like, why is your testosterone low? Like, is it a brain issue? Is it an LH-FSH issue? Is it gonadal? Are you sleeping? Are you exercising? Are you eating anything that doesn't come out of a bag or a box? So
you need somebody to work through that, right? So certainly if you're going to a place like, you go to a pop-up hormone clinic, they're going to say hormones, right? They're going to be pretty quick to offer you hormones, but there's a spectrum, right? Of most conservative to most aggressive, and frank testosterone replacement being the most aggressive. Now, if you're going to start conservatively, then you should probably optimize for stress. You should probably figure out your sleep. You should probably get on some magnesium. You could even try some Tongkat Ali. There are things you can try. You get your vitamin D levels up. Make sure you're on some vitamin E. Have you tried, how aggressive do you want to get? Have you tried icing your testicles, right?
Yeah.
So just things like that. Are you lifting heavy weights, right? Are you focusing on the secretion of myokines from large muscle groups? So never skip leg day because testosterone, right? So everyone's it's all about legs. You should be doing squats 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
No, but so certainly that's where to start. And then all of a sudden you're okay, where have we gotten you? But if you get a guy that comes in and he's like, I played sports, I was a football player, I was rugby, whatever it is, I got hit in the head, I've had 7, 8 concussions, and then all of a sudden you look at their labs and it's like their pituitary glands just all jacked up.
Yep.
So in that case, it really doesn't matter what you do. You probably never get that guy to produce more testosterone, unless of course you use something like HCG, which is wildly difficult to come by now because of all of the regulations. The FDA ruled it a biologic a number of years ago, and the pharmacies that are producing it are no longer able to do so. So now it's only really available as Pregnal, which is the commercial version of it. And so that would be a great option for this guy that we're talking about right now that's been hit in the head a few times. But unfortunately, it's really only indicated for fertility purposes right now. And there's a national shortage of Pregnal.
Wow.
The other side of it, it's crazy expensive. I want to say it's at $250, $300 for in the grand scheme of things, is it that expensive? No, but for what it is compared to what it could be, it's pretty expensive. So HCG is really hard to come by, but that'd be a great option for this guy. But you could also go to other things like clomiphene, right? Give it a shot. So it works. Clomid and clomiphene, just see what happens. You could use gonadorelin, right? Another great option. You could use something like kisspeptin. Kisspeptin is great, right, for short periods of time. I found, and sure Jean-Francois would tell me otherwise, but I've found that people get diminishing returns on it. And you really need to cycle it. Now, that said, hard to say, but
yeah. I think I think, to your point, there's a lot of unanswered questions there. I know that one thing he said to me is that he got the best results with kisspeptin when he did his little insulin pump experiment. And instead of bolusing it, he would have virtually infuse it over hours during the day.
Just tiny amounts.
And if you read the studies,
and that's exactly, so they study on K10, right? Where they go through it, these kisspeptin 10 and K44, I think is what they were looking at.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it was, that's exactly what they did. It was an infusion over a short period. That's absolutely the way to do it. But how many people have an insulin pump? Well,
or even are open to it.
Right.
Like, exactly. I have one because I'd love to repeat his GHK experiment. Ask me if I've taken it out of the box and let the rubber hit the road. Not yet. Do I really want to, it's a big deal. Do I really want to walk around with like a pump on my belt and a needle in my belly all the time? Like, I have no problems with needles in my belly. And there's the fact that, there's still some questions and answers to be had. Anyway, I will eventually, as a matter of fact, I think my computer may be sitting on top of the box that the pump is in as we speak right now.
That's good.
Yeah, a little too much information, I guess. Anyway.
I have a good buddy who's a diabetic, and he's at a pump since I've known him since we were in 7th grade, and he's at a pump ever since that point. He had the first generation pump. So I see him use it all the time. It doesn't seem that bad. Then all of a sudden you wonder, okay, I've got this thing. It's tagging around. It's funny. You see him get up and walk somewhere. If he's just in sweatpants, and he'll just have his pump trailing behind him on the ground. Shouldn't you pick that up? What are you doing?
It's not a bad thing.
He's like, I don't care.
All right. Well, he's got experience on his side. And he knows what he's doing. Okay. So endometriosis, hormones, you had a couple of really interesting case studies you wanted to talk about. So I know the endometriosis one I think is fascinating because so often that diagnosis is an endpoint, right? You have endometriosis, you're kind of doomed to us opening you up, pulling, the tissue out that doesn't belong, that's growing where it doesn't belong, until one day we convince you to just remove a bunch of organs, which, and sometimes that may be the answer for some people, but I'm a huge proponent of the philosophy that we're not born with any spare parts. And so whatever we can do to hang on to what we've got is probably better, as long as it doesn't make us miserable.
So, and, again, we're really good at hormones. We are really good at hormones. It's not what we specialize in, but we're really good at hormones. So if somebody has a hormonal abnormality, absolutely, let's go there. So a lot of people in your group, there was one woman that posted something about how she was using testosterone on its own, along with a couple of peptides here and there, really trying to lose some weight. And that's a perfect example of somebody who really, you got to run labs, right? You need to see what's going on. You can't use something like testosterone blindly, especially if you're a woman, because anyone for that matter, but you could be back converting all that testosterone to estrogen.
Absolutely.
And then be extremely dominant. And then that could even further promote central adiposity. And then it doesn't matter what kind of a caloric deficit you're hitting, right? And the other side of it is you got to optimize for thyroid. You got to make sure your thyroid is dialed in. And then, then from there, peptides, great. But, and you mentioned it earlier, how many peptides do you actually take? I take very few. Occasionally I'll use CJ Cinnapomorelin. Occasionally I use some DPC. Occasionally, I really like thymosin alpha 1. Yeah. But all that said, it's oftentimes it's not like the starting point. It's not, hey, where do you go? Honestly, you should start with your hormones. You should start, and hormones meaning you should start with sex hormones. You should start with thyroid. You should start with targeting insulin resistance, and then see how you can go. If your CRP is elevated, then CJ Cinnapomorelin is not going to be the answer, right? Yeah. Likely you need to backtrack. So where do you start? How do you get started is one big piece to this. And that's, you need to look at the basics.
For sure.
You need to track basics. So so many people are so excited about running really extensive labs right out the gate, and they want to see their, maybe they want to see a full cytokine panel. They want to see interleukin-1 beta, want to see interleukin-6, want to track all tumor necrosis factor alpha, want to see all these inflammatory markers. But the truth is, you're probably going to see your C-reactive protein elevated. You're probably going to see your A1C is elevated. You're probably going to see that you have low vitamin D, low B12, probably have low magnesium. These are all things to target first, because chances are you target those things and all of a sudden your cytokine issues dissipate and improve over time.
Yeah.
That's not the case, but that's where to get started.
But those labs are good, even just to give a baseline, right?
Absolutely.
It's and I mean, to your point, it's a way of targeting the low hanging fruit before you start reaching for the top of the tree, which if you haven't addressed the low hanging fruit, there's still going to be a problem. So I do think that, running the labs, and to your point, I think what's happening a lot in the group is you've got people throwing darts at a dartboard because they've been underserved for so long by their primary care physicians, right? And it's, yeah.
I got to take this in my own hands.
Yeah.
Which is actually, that's the exact kind of mindset that I want as a client, truthfully.
Yeah.
Right. I want somebody that says, I'm willing to think out of the box. I'm willing to try new stuff. I'm willing to take the step and take this into my own hands and say, hey, how can I improve? How can I repair? And then really become that how does a watch work type person, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm tired, I'm fatigued. Okay, well, what's your sleep hygiene, right? What's what does your diet really look like? And I'm a firm believer that you can't just tell somebody, hey, here's the best diet. You need to look at genetics, right? And anybody that says keto's for you, or it's because it's for everyone, or they say Mediterranean diet, I think more than likely most people would respond well to a Mediterranean diet. But all that said, you got to see your genetics. So that's one piece of it. How do you interpret your genetics? How do you do that the right way?
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually just interviewed someone last week, at the end of last week, who does a different type of test that looks at a whole other compound that doesn't really fly as high above the radar as other things. And that's the glycanage test that's looking at glycans. And they did a really interesting study where they took a lot of people, and I want to say it was maybe 2,000 people, and they separated them into groups. And this group got a Mediterranean diet. This group got a keto diet. This group got a low carb diet. This group got a high glycemic diet. Another group, they tested a whole bunch of different things. And I said, okay, so what is it? What's the best diet? Because I've never believed that there's a best diet either. I mean, I believe there's better diets than others, but there's not the one thing we can recommend. And he laughed at me and he said, you know what? Here's the news. We had people do well and do poorly in every group, including the high glycemic group. There were people who could even handle that. Now, will they be handling it that well in 20 years is a different story, but it is that individual. And I think that the more of us can be out there flying that banner that says, I'm begging you, we know that, and the problem is that the people who are advocating, whether it's carnivore or keto or paleo or whatever, they're so compelling. They are the banner child for that diet. And so someone who's looking for answers is like, I want to be that person. So then you hear about the people that succeeded, but what you don't see is the litter of the trail of bodies behind them that just...
Right. It's unbelievable. It's like, okay, so this year we've seen people say that you shouldn't eat vegetables. We've seen people say you should never eat red meat.
Yeah. We've
seen people say that fat is the worst thing you could ever be consuming, so you should go no fat. We've seen people say low carb is the answer, but the truth is it's whatever works for you. The best diet is the one that works for you, that you can stick to and that you feel great on. Yeah. So you kind of got to play with it, or maybe we should look at your genetics, right? We should see actually, okay, let's take a targeted approach. Yeah. So it's unbelievable the direction that all that's going. So you see these people that are really pushing for a carnivore style of eating, or these people that are saying, oh, you shouldn't eat meat because there's IGF-1. And it's like, well, what? There's IGF-1? You mean there's a protein that you break down into its amino acid components, and then your body's just going to use those amino acids as it needs to, because it's not actually going to translate to IGF-1? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So that's just an example of somebody who opens up a biochemistry book and looks at it and says, oh,
that one point.
Here's electron transport chain, and I'm going to perseverate on this one point for a while, and we'll see how that goes.
For sure.
But yeah, so
Well,
So there's so many conflicting viewpoints out there.
for sure. Well, and qualifying something is bad, right? mTOR is bad. Okay.
Right.
At some point you kind of need mTOR a little bit.
Right.
Like, you don't want to squish it. You're just like, you need inflammation a little bit. Like,
I think of longevity as no different than bodybuilding in a lot of ways. So think about body. There's a reason why they are able to achieve perfect physique, right? They cycle, right? You should never be on antioxidant forever. You should be cycling antioxidants. You should never be on something to boost mTOR. You should never be going super, super high protein forever, right? You should never be going that direction. You should never be overwhelming your body with growth hormones such that you're super physiologic in IGF-1 for extended periods of time. You can argue that you should actually never do that. But all that said, you got to cycle it. There's a reason why bodybuilders achieve perfect physique. And I don't think of longevity as anything different, right?
Yeah.
You need to cycle through this stuff. You need to figure out what's the best time to take this stuff. When should you be doing it? And you need to have someone in your corner that helps you make that happen.
Absolutely. And, even the bodybuilders, when they cycle off, if they're not doing things right, they're pretty disastrous in between their perfect physique times.
I work with a lot of bodybuilders, and it's, we see some scary things in labs sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
It's absolutely stuff that, really got to address some things, and so I use that as an extreme example.
For sure.
So they're looking to achieve perfect physique, and they're sacrificing their own labs in a lot of cases because of it. But the fact of the matter is, longevity shouldn't be any different.
Yeah.
That you're pushing on these different components of biochemistry so that you can live the longest, healthiest, happiest life.
Absolutely. So did you have any other case studies you wanted to share with us today? Anything else in the case study pickle trunk?
Yeah. So I mean, on many things. So there's another guy that came in. I do a lot of reviews for True Diagnostic and the True Age test. So see a lot of those tests coming through. And there's one guy that came in. I did a consultation with him, and he was 3 years older than his chronological age. On his intrinsic age. His intrinsic age is the best way to think about it is you're replicating cells over time. How effectively are you replicating them? Very similar to the concept I think in David Sinclair's book, where he talks about burning CDs and you lose audio quality. Well, that's that loss of audio quality is the same as hyper or hypomethylation, right? To the point where you're not expressing your DNA effectively. So that intrinsic age is really, you got to hone in on that and say, all right, well, how effectively you're replicating cells. So this guy was, I think, if I remember correctly, he was 3 years older than he was chronologically and his biological age, and came in, started working with us. Very knowledgeable guy. He's an oncologist.
Oh, wow.
Very knowledgeable guy. And really, he needed somebody to put the puzzle together for him. Felt like he was working with puzzles from 10 different places. And okay, how do I put this one puzzle together with these different pieces? And he was using Crestor from his primary care doctor, which there are indications to use Crestor. There are great to use statin drugs. But he was, in combination with that, he was also using metformin. And in combination with that, he was also interested in starting rapamycin. So then he's using all of these things that are extremely mitochondrial toxic, but he's not giving any of that back. So that's a perfect example of, okay, urolithin A is probably a really good option for you.
Yeah.
Some pomegranate extract and CoQ10. Let's really work on mitochondrial health. And that may be a reason why you're not scoring as effectively as you could be on this intrinsic age test. The other side of it is he was on testosterone, but was on a fairly high dose of it with a fairly high dose of anastrozole. And even with that, he still had very high levels of estrone, which in a lot of ways, that's not good. So clearly the anastrozole was blunting his estradiol numbers and leaving him with excess estrone. So in that case, he's working with one of our doctors, and a doctor says, well, you probably need some DIM, probably need to reduce your dose of testosterone, take you off of the anastrozole altogether, and let everything come over. And certainly when you do that, people end up converting a little extra estrogen until they get to the point where, okay, they're converting estrogens effectively. So they go through a period of, hey, maybe you're crying at commercials on TV for a little while, or you have a little bit of nipple tenderness, but that's perfectly normal.
Temporary.
It dissipates, right? So when somebody wins gold in the Olympics, you may be bawling a little bit just for a moment, but it's very emotional when somebody wins gold.
And it can be.
May or may not be
legit.
From
I cry sometimes. Nothing wrong with crying.
Right. So, but in working through all these things and making sure his supplements are right and making sure his hormones are right and providing that his IGF-1 was around 120. So got him on just a little low, right?
Yeah,
so got a low dose of CJC and ipamorelin as a really effective way to, bottom of the barrel. Let's see how it goes. It's probably going to give him a little bump, but also getting his testosterone right will also help there. So then also found out, he has a history of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. He's an oncologist. He's never had that workup done before, which I found mind blowing. So all of a sudden now he needs some low dose naltrexone to work on tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-6, and work on the autoimmune response. Then all of a sudden now his whole program's coming together, right?
Yeah.
Everything really, we're landing on something where you're on 5 milligrams of rapamycin a week. You're cycling metformin 90 days on and a few weeks off. You are staying on, dropping your Crestor down a little bit and optimizing your hormones overall. 8 months later, we saw that his intrinsic age was now 2 years younger. So a difference of 5 years.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing, right?
Well, in 8 months, that's huge.
In 8 months, it's huge. Well, it is important to note that people like that you see those swings there, 60% of that metric in which you see there is is changeable. 40% is unchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
So likelihood is that the fact that he had such a rapid change was that he probably has really good genetics, right? 40% of that is thanks mom and dad, right? You're just, it is what it is. But that 60% that's changeable means that what he was doing in his protocol was not boding well for him. He also saw a reduction in his Dunedin-Poem instantaneous rate of aging, which is your instantaneous standpoint. How are you aging right now? When he did it initially, he was at a 0.9 something, and now he's at 0.84, I think is the number there. So we saw a reduction there, and that's really amenable to effective fasting protocols, making sure they're fasting effectively.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's another case study.
Well, and so there's a lot of takeaways from that, right? In that, here's a person who on paper was doing a lot of things right, and who wanted to add the rapamycin, and frankly, who's a pretty knowledgeable, you would think is a pretty knowledgeable dude when it comes to the body. But
absolutely.
But number one, it's you need even, and I see this a lot. Like I sometimes will have a physician who's a client, and what they lack is the distance, right? What they lack is that perspective to step back to, he's probably been given, because doctors by definition, I don't think can prescribe stuff for themselves. There's something in a code somewhere. Yeah, ish. I know, but still technically. But even if they're not, like they've got their buddy who's giving them the statin, and they've got somebody else giving them the metformin. And I recently came across a doctor who put someone on a statin and said absolutely no to CoQ10. And I was like, well, I don't understand why no. Just help me understand. I'm not sure I can kind of get my head around that. But all these doctors, they're incredible specialists in their field. But that means that sometimes they become a little blind outside of that field. And so even these guys who we look to an oncologist is saving a lot of people's lives every single day, needs outside help for himself. Right.
Absolutely.
And looking,
coaches need coaches, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you don't try to manage your own care. Trainers need trainers. Coaches need coaches. Doctors need doctors. You can be amazing at what you're doing, but you still need someone in your corner, right? It's even the best. I work with some amazing bodybuilders. They have their own clients, right? They don't try to build their own bodybuilding programs on their own.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right. They're still using someone else. So you still need someone else in your corner. You absolutely do. And you need somebody that can centralize everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how with that perspective, you didn't wipe the slate clean of everything it was doing. You just put it all into context with each other. And it's really about putting together the pieces of the puzzle and having that centralization. The other thing that I think you guys do that's really interesting, quite apart from using really cool tests like the True Diagnostic and the Apeiron genetics. I mean, you may use other genetic tests. I have found, honestly, I'm a grass is always greener on the other side person. And ever since I became certified by Apeiron, I've looked at lots of other genetic tests. I haven't quite found one yet that gives me the information they give me and the way they give it that I think is really easy for people to understand. But aside from that,
sounds like you should develop your own.
Develop my own.
Sounds like you should develop your own. Yeah.
I don't know. I think you got to stick to your lane sometimes. Are you developing your own?
No,
Nope.
that's outside my lane.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, you got. I mean, and that's the point here, right? You have your lane, know what you do, and then go get help with other people. And I think it's the power of something like Liv Health is really bringing together all of these different people that have different areas of expertise, but almost like, and there's another physician I've interviewed they talk about whiteboarding a client, where they get a team together and they put everything down on a board when they're looking at a new patient to say, okay, what are all the different pieces here, so that you don't miss a piece that could be playing a huge role in this person's outcome.
So interesting. So that's very interesting, similar to what we do, different, but similar, where when a client onboards with us, or patient onboards with us, they meet with their health concierge first to start. And that's an intake call. Hey, tell me all about you. What are you interested in? I want to know everything there is to know. It's an hour-long call where it's really just first date kind of deal, right? And I tell people all the time, tell me a story. Just tell me about you. Take 5-6 minutes, whatever it is. They usually end up talking for about 20. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there taking really aggressive notes. And after the fact, I compile all those notes, and that lives in the patient's chart. And that hour-long conversation, so that anybody that talks to that patient knows what in the world's going on with them. Yeah. Right. And there's that full audit. And a lot of times you don't get that, right? When physicians are writing notes, they're in a hurry. So oftentimes, what kind of notes are they writing? Right. They're saying, patient is a 75-year-old female presenting today for evaluation status post ischemic stroke. Yeah. And then it's like patient having trouble with basic, activities of daily living. Yeah. Can't put clothes into closet. But what that's not personalized, right? You don't know anything about the person. You don't know that she is married and her husband takes care of her. You don't know about her diet. You don't know about her fitness program. You don't know about all that stuff. And doctors, oftentimes, they just don't have enough time to do that. So after we go through that whole call, and we order labs and we customize labs to the patient and ensure that it's, hey, what labs do you need overall here? What's going to be the best route forward? Certainly, we have some things that are like, hey, this is our just basic male and basic female panel. This is what you need from the door. But oftentimes, that's not enough, right? And you need someone to listen to you and say, okay, where should we be going here? What kind of advanced metrics might be necessary here? And then after that, you meet with the doctor. It's a 45-minute, hour-long call, first time with that doctor going through, and you establish a program and you get your questions answered. And then after every physician appointment, you follow up with your health concierge again to say, okay, let's put this whole program into action. Let's chat. Let's see exactly where do you have questions? Where are there holes? How can I help? And let's see about sourcing all of these products for you. And where should you get them from? What kind of lifestyle metrics should we be adjusting? Let's talk about diet. Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about fitness. Right. And then integrate all of these things into an overall protocol that's just your living, breathing protocol for yourself. Yeah. And from there, it's really, you follow up with your team as you need. A lot of people are like, well, how often do I follow up with my doctor? Well, how often do you need to follow up with your doctor? Yeah. Right. How often do you follow up with your concierge? When do you need to follow up with your concierge? We'll build that program for you, which is really unique. So the concept of whiteboarding is I love that. And just in a term of like, hey, centralizing everyone's care to one place so that everybody is a part of that program. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan. So, all right. I think we have time for one more case study, and then, we could keep going. I mean, to me, case studies are kind of like story time. I'm all over it. Yeah. So I had another guy who is, so type 2 diabetes is a really interesting thing, right? Where you have some people where it's absolutely from lifestyle that they've developed type 2 diabetes. Yeah. And other people who seemingly they're a very healthy person. You look at their diet, you look at what's going on with them. It's like, why do you have type 2? What is going on? Yeah. Right. So I had one guy come in, I think he's around 5'11", maybe 205, with an A1C of, I think it was in the mid 6s. And he'd been meeting with his own primary care doctor. They said, you're type 2 diabetes. And a year before that, he'd been working on his own to get it down. I think it was in the 7s prior to that. And he said, my doctor, they're just not giving me the care that I need to address this issue and what's going on. He had a little bit of weight to lose, but nothing crazy. Yeah, not over the top. In talking with him, he grows all of his own food. He has meat, rabbits, and chickens. and all free range stuff. He eats only grass-fed meat. He counts his fiber on a daily basis, really goes through, it looks at everything in great detail in terms of his diet. He's regimented. He works out pretty much daily. And it's like, why does this guy have type 2 diabetes? And you look at it a little bit more. His C-reactive protein was 11. 11, which you look at.
It's double digits.
Right. In standard medical practice, the C-reactive protein, typically they'll look at it on a scale from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Anything under 5 or 10 is normal, but really anything under 1 is optimal. So our goal is, hey, let's get that down. And then looking at his lipids, he had tons and tons of small particles. It was very clear that he was not getting enough fiber in his diet. It was very clear that he needed some form of pharmaceutical to help him. So he was started on a course of berberine as well as metformin. I think down the line, we're going to consider semaglutide if we haven't really started making some progress there. But generally, in starting on those 2 products, in addition to taking another look at his diet and starting him on some dedicated fasting programs and protocols, working on sticking to an 8-hour eating window on a daily basis, throwing in a once weekly 24-hour fast and a once quarterly 3-day water fast. Yeah. Then additionally working on his hormone levels. So this guy's, if I remember correctly, he's either in his late 40s or early 50s, but he's had no testosterone. Absolutely no testosterone. So then you look at that and you start wondering, well, guys get all of their estrogen from testosterone. Estrogen is so important for insulin sensitivity. Yeah. It's also so important for cardioprotection, so important for neuroprotection. And it's really important for erectile function, really important for libido. Guess what? He had none of. He had a poor erectile quality and poor libido. So he was working with Dr. Michael Meehan, who is one of our doctors there at Liv Health. And Dr. Meehan put him on this really extensive protocol of different supplements, different meds, and included in that were the testosterone. And he also found out, oh, guess what else he has? He has Hashimoto's too. Wow. And you start wondering, well, all this stuff plays a role. So cut out gluten. Go gluten. Right? Everyone thinks, well, Hashimoto's is this underlying autoimmune condition. Well, guess what? One of the causes of it is gluten intolerance. So he cut out gluten. He worked on the berberine, the metformin, started some citrus bergamot, started high dose magnesium, and as well as the testosterone. Some consideration for some growth hormone secretagogues, but he decided to hold off there because his one wasn't quite where it needed to be, but he decided to hold off. He's been working with us for close to a year now. And among lifestyle changes, among everything that we've done for him, we've seen his A1C is now in the 5s, high 5s, 5.6 or 5.7, which is great. A 1 point reduction over the course of less than a year. And then additionally, his C-reactive protein is under 1. Wow. So that's huge. I mean, that's huge, right? Yeah. So it's just, again, it's these circumstances of these people who come to us and they have an idea of what they need to be doing. It's just, how do I take it that step further? How do I really put this all together? How do I put the puzzle together myself? Yeah. And we'll help you do that. Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting in a case like that is on paper at first blush, this person's doing a lot right. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of easy to kind of go, okay, well, I guess you just need the drugs, where there's always more. And, that 24-hour once a week fast, I have seen work miracles for people. Like it is, right. I had one guy once, he started fasting from dinner on Sunday till dinner on Monday. And, we did a few lifestyle things here and there and the other, but all of a sudden the central adiposity decreased, the blood sugar normalized, the blood lipids started to normalize. He clearly wasn't too far gone already. Like he was kind of probably on the cusp of a bunch of stuff, but it was amazing how just that one intervention just literally changed his life. It's right. And it's a lot of people are like, oh my God, fasting, I could never do it. It's like, it's just dinner to dinner. It's just dinner to dinner. It's just, you just don't eat for a little while. It's all good. Just don't eat. It's just like, and one of the problems is most people are just uncomfortable being hungry. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You really need to, be okay with being hungry for a little while. You'll be fine. I promise. Yeah. Yeah. No, I do think a piece of the puzzle there, though, is helping them to normalize, to get off the high glycemic diet first. And once you help them to, steady the boat, as it were, so that they're not riding this ridiculous roller coaster all day, every day, not eating for a few hours starts to become a lot less scary and actually achievable without
hurting someone who they love dearly by accident.
How hungry can you get, right?
Yeah. Because if you're hangry, we're going to have to take care of that. So, all right, Mr. Andrew, I feel like we could be doing case studies all day, every day. I'm hopefully everybody's got a reasonable idea of what Liv Health has to offer. So why don't we, unless there's something else you want to talk about that we've left off the table, is there anything else you really wanted to share with our listeners? No?
It's if you're interested, reach out. If you want to chat about what we do and how we operate, it's as easy as getting on a phone call.
Yeah. And so to get on that phone call, you go to livhealth.com, and Liv has no E. So livhealth.com. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. livhealth.com, not .org. .org is a different telemedicine company. I think they specialize in psychiatry.
Okay.
So livhealth.com, not livhealth.org.
Right.
If you call them, they'll be a little bit confused. Yeah.
Although at this point, they're probably, cluing in, going, well, I don't know, maybe we could do something like that.
Right. So livhealth.com, you can go in and view our programs, pricing stuff. But ultimately, one great option is to just schedule a call. Get on a call with us and just see if this is a good option. I think that through this podcast, Natalie has a 1 month free coupon. I think the code to get that is her last name, Niddam, Niddam. So as I mentioned, it baseline, one is $150 a month, one is $250 a month. Again, it's billed out quarterly. So you're billed out for 3 months at a time. And you can either do that or you can buy an annual membership. And if you buy an annual membership, you get 2 months for free. Now, all that said, in our core membership, that's the $150 offering. Actually, I want to backtrack. I want to start with a complete membership. So our complete membership is $250 a month, and that is full concierge access. You get unlimited access to your doctor. You get unlimited access to your concierge. You get unlimited access to your patient support coordinator. And we can send you prescriptions. We can send you supplements. We can draw labs anytime you want. And it truly is a full concierge offering. Now, that model, again, is $250 a month, billed out quarterly, so $750 a quarter. Now, the 150 program, the lesser program, which is the core program, really is what it is it's a health coaching program in and of itself, where you really only have a relationship with your health concierge. Now, it's still the exact same onboarding. We're still going to get initial labs. We're still going to have you meet with the doctor. We're still going to have that initial consultation and that initial conversation there where we say, this is what's recommended. So then you have an idea. If you wanted to become a complete member, great. Here's what it would entail. But the fact of the matter is, in the core membership, the doctor is not a part of your plan ongoing. So what does that mean? So if the doctor is not part of your program ongoing, you cannot get repeat labs. You cannot get repeat physician consults. You cannot get prescriptions.
Okay.
So in the core membership, you get access to your concierge on a monthly basis. You can have monthly contact there. You can message us as much as you want. We can get into it from a standpoint of diet. We can get into it from supplements. We can get into it for fitness and really just any lifestyle interventions that you want to make. How can we work on sleep hygiene, right? How can we work on just a baseline? How can I be a healthier person off of an initial panel of labs? So $150 a month, no doctor, $250 a month, doctor, and full suite of options.
Amazing. Okay. Well, that clarifies things. Thank you so much. And all right, let's leave it with that. And then let's let people know it's livhealth.com. We're talking to Andrew Wax, who is one of the brilliant health concierges at livhealth.com. And if you guys use the discount code NIDAM, then you're going to get your first month free of whatever program it is that you sign up for. Did I get that right? Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. A pleasure. And I hope we get to do this again real soon.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me.